So welcome. This is Laura again at the Painted Canvas in downtown Clarksville. Today we are working on this great little chalkboard. That's what Couture was designed for, was to be able to put them on a chalkboard and be able to change your mind, put something different on there. Let me see if I can get my camera a little bit taller here. So that you can actually see everything. So you can put a design on your chalkboard. You get tired of it or you just want to change it, you can spritz it back off. So today I've used the large wreath, and it comes with several different components. So it has different leaves that you can add to it. I went ahead and put the large wreath on so that you could see how you can add other components to it. So it has different ones. You can totally leave it just like that. This would look great in your home, just with it like that, and I also like to add a few of the smaller stencils. They have several smaller stencils that were created that would fit perfectly inside. This one came with all of these components. I just cut them apart. So this is a separate one. The Family Where Life Begins and Love Never Ends is separate from the wreath. But once you have 2 or 3 stencils, you can totally mix and match them. So I think I'm going to add that in the center. And then I saved a little room at the bottom. I'm not sure where you can see that I can either add a touch of flowers or something to it before it hangs on the wall. This one in particular is magnetic, so I can stick some magnets to it and stick something else to it, maybe just a little pocket of flowers at the bottom. So we are going to add, this is good and dry, so once it's dry you can add other components on top of it and do a little bit of layering. I particularly like this mint green color, so I'm going to just do a little bit of layering. You can tell these just peel off. They're very sticky on the back, and they just stick down nicely to wherever you want them. I just press them down, make sure there's not any air bubbles, and wherever you want a little more fullness. This one I'm going to add, I think maybe a branch that comes inside just a tiny bit. There are also these little bitty seed flower looking components that you can add a little touch of color to if you would like. So I'm going to decide where I want that one. I'm thinking maybe right there. Just put it on top, press it down, make sure there's no air bubbles under it, and then we'll squeegee these on one at a time. So if you haven't seen this yet, you have a shiny side. We're just peeling that off, and that shiny side is where, after our stencil is washed and dried, it's going to go back on, because you can reuse these stencils bunches and bunches of times. So here's a few other components that are in there. I'm not sure how many of these I'm going to use today. I like to do mine, and then I like to look at it and decide if that's all I want on it or if I'd like to add something else. So I usually do a little bit, kind of show you how to get going, and then can totally add something else later. So I've got my chalk opened. It just comes in a little container. This is a 2 ounce. They've started making some 3 ounce because I think we need 3 ounce because I use it a lot. It doesn't use a lot per each project, but I like it, and when we get favorite colors, like anything else, we use it a lot. So this is one of my favorite ones. I'm just going to splash this paste really kind of thick over it, because we're going to come back with this next size squeegee. Different size squeegees are good to use. You're going to come back, and you can see I put quite a bit of paste on here, but most of it's going to come back, and I'm just going to put that back into my jar. That way it's not too thick, it doesn't flake off, peel off, and I don't waste my wax, or excuse me, my paste. I was waxing something earlier, piece of wood. So I'm just going to peel this off, and you can see now I have another layer of vine there. If I want to use that again really quickly, sometimes I can get away with that. Let's see if I can get away with that today where it doesn't smear, instead of washing it in between. You can also take a little Lysol towel and wipe that off. So I put quite a bit of paste on there again. Let's see if it will work without smudging or smearing. That one underneath it was not dry, so we're going to see what happens. I haven't tried this. We'll see. Maybe a disaster. It may work beautifully. Ah, it took off some of my other paste. So I should have, that would have worked beautifully if I hadn't have put it where I already had that one. So we're going to let that one dry. We'll totally come back in a little bit and replace that a little bit. But that way you can see what happens. You can see it just pulled off a little bit of the paste right here because it wasn't dry. The paste that was already dry, no big deal. So I think these little ones here, I think I'm going to put a little bit of antique white maybe, or sand, or whatever color I have over here. But I'm going to do these one at a time because we don't want them to dry in our stencil. Remember, if they dry in your stencil, it will pull it. And again, you're going to wipe your, whoops, I lost my, going to wipe your paste, excess paste back in there. You don't want it to dry in your stencil because then it won't stick to your surface. So whatever surface you're using. So I didn't want that to stick in my surface. So I'm going to get that off there, but you can see it's beautiful on there. So pretty. So I'm just going to lay that one right over here, and I can wash that out later. It's just chalk, just a paste. It's not going to hurt to sit there for just a minute. I think I'm going to do maybe this little sprig more in some this pretty mint green color that I like so much. It's a very, very soft, almost a sage green. But for this particular project, I just wanted some soft colors. So again, and if I want this somewhere else, again, I can lay it down right quick, as long as I don't get a bunch of chalk paste underneath it, and as long as I don't lay it somewhere like I did a while ago that was still wet. So I'm going to try that one more time right there. Just give it a little bit more paste. So you can see, you can kind of manipulate these a little bit how you want. So just wherever you want to add a few more leaves. I just wanted a few sprigs here. I didn't want it to be tons of fullness. I just wanted a little bit more, and I think I might need one right there. And you can even run it off the edge, just kind of press it down. Again, that paste dries pretty quick. Let's see if I can do that one more time. I don't know that they recommend that you move these around like that, but as long as they're not drying and pulling your paste back off, there's really no reason you can't. They do have a great little sticky back. So, yeah, I think that looks good. I like that. Kind of gives me some of my flow over here and a little of my sprigs over there, so we're going to put that one in my water, and I'll rinse it off in a little bit. So I think now this one, for this particular design, I just need, I'm going to close this paste up sorta, kinda. As your paste gets, if it gets a little bit dry, this one's getting a little bit thick, don't forget you can spritz a little water on top or just put a few water drops. I will clean this better. I'm just going to close it up a little bit right now just so it doesn't get too dry. Normally I would stop and clean that up because I don't want to waste it and ruin it. So now I've got a little bit of this cream, and I'm just going to put it on the little dabs of the little spritzes of little, oh, they're really not flowers, they're more like little buds here. And I'm going to see what that looks like. I may do more of the vines, but right now I'm just going to do these little little dots here of color, and I'm gonna just kind of squeegee that off with a couple different edges of my squeegee here, trying to avoid the actual stem. Let's see what that looks like. I may not like it. If it doesn't, I can take it back off. I don't have to live with it. So yeah, I might come back in a little bit and add a little bit of stem to that. But I think for right now, I'm going to add maybe one more sprig right here while I've got that handy. You can see it just takes such a small amount. Once you have 2 or 3 stencils and 2 or 3 colors of paste, you can just kind of do whatever you want, which is so much fun. In some of the other videos, we put the chalk couture stencils on wood. We've put it a little bit on some fabric. Let's do one more sprig here. Let's see. Something tells me I want it right in there for some reason. I'm just going to lightly press that down so I don't smudge it, because I just want a little bit, and I don't want it to get right where I'd already worked. And then later, after this dries, which it dries really fast, or you can put it in front of a fan, you can use a heat gun, you can use a hair dryer, any of those things. Then you can layer the stems if you want the stem parts. I think I just want this little bit sprigs of flowers in there, so I like that. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to put that one again in my water. And so now while this is drying, we can think about how we want this to lay out. So you can see I've got little sprigs of paste and stuff. We can wipe that off later. This is just a chalkboard. So later on I can wipe off anything. Just get a little Q-tip or something that will just wipe that off, because it just washes off. So I'm thinking I want family right here at the top. Again, watch so that your stencil, this one, I got a little paste on the back side of it with my fingers being dirty. But just make sure that presses down. This doesn't really matter because I'm not going to use that part. But the part that has the beautiful lettering, you'll definitely want that to be down. And usually I put down one side. And if I want the family to be closer, then I would just squeegee that first, and then and let it dry, and then I can scoot my stencil up closer. So we can kind of decide, do I want this to be a little bit set apart, or do I want it up close? I think I want it set apart a little bit. And I could also do some type of little flower in between if I wanted. So I'm going to set this down on one side, kind of work it over so I don't have air bubbles in there, because of this beautiful fine little bit of lettering, it needs to have a good seal down. I'm going to pull this one back up. You notice I'm pulling from one side or the other not to stretch my stencil. I didn't feel like that was as straight as I wanted it to be, so I'm going to do that one more time and work myself across. There's an air bubble right there, so we want to pull that up and just push that on over, because if you get an air bubble, it will get a big blob of paint and it can smear your lettering. Worst thing that happened on here is that you have to come back and do a little bit of cleanup. So not a big deal with your, not a big deal at all with the chalkboard. Now if you're doing it on a permanent surface, or if you're using ink, you're doing it on some fabric, that would be a big deal. So I'm going to wipe this squeegee off just a little bit. And so this time I am using, I think it's called Peachy. It's kind of a soft coral. And you can tell it needs to be stirred. It's really kind of thick. It hasn't been opened in a little bit. The paste is thick. If you want it a little bit thinner, just like I say, add a few drops of water, or spritz it with a little bottle of water, a little spritz. So I'm going to do one at a time. Again, dab it on there kind of thickly. I'm not sure that's a word. Dab it on kind of thick. and then I can squeegee over it really quickly. I think that's where I was headed, was with the quickly, not thickly. So I'm going to use a little bit bigger squeegee on this one because I want those to come right across there. And again, I'm going to put this back into my jar because I don't need all that. So set that right there and keep my squeegee from disappearing. I'm going to pull that up from one side or the other, and I love Chalk Couture's lettering. That's just a nice soft pastel color, which is exactly what I was wanting today. So again, I'm going to do the same thing quickly. You can tell I'm using a lot of paste. That is going to go back in the jar. But it's so much easier once I figured out. It's so much easier to put a whole bunch and then put it back. My projects were much neater and much more successful. So again, I'm going to just squeegee right across there, put all of this back in for my next project. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of this peachy to my wreath once it gets dry. I don't know if you'll see it in this video, but so squeegee it again. You can see I like to squeegee it off until it's nice and smooth and I can see my lettering come through my screen again. That way I don't feel like I have too much on there. So again, I'm going to pull it off from one side so I don't stretch my stencil, and let's see how pretty it is. Oh my goodness, isn't their lettering just gorgeous? So there's the stencil. You can see it has, you can see the screen has that sticky back, and I've got little flakes of chalk on here that I'm going to dust off in a little bit, but I'm going to lay this stencil down right over here and I will rinse it off in a second. So there we have it. There is our wreath with our family, where life begins and love never ends. I absolutely love this one. Let's see, I washed that other stencil, but if this time, if you wanted to, you could stick that one that I took off right here. It's nice and dry, and I could actually put that one back on, or you can add another one on top of there. But you can totally layer these, so it would be no big deal to add one more little sprig on there of whatever you wanted. So that's all we're going to do though for today on this one, because I want to keep these short so you can have a chance to watch them. And thanks for watching, and I'm Laura Conley at the Painted Canvas. You can look me up at paintedcanvas.chalkcouture.com, and I would love for you to share my videos anytime.